What are other examples in the human body that are...
The most dramatic is the human eye.
Right.
You know, it's held up as this example of perfection in the body. It's not perfect at all. It's the perfect example of why the body is not designed. I mean, imagine a camera designer for a famous camera company like Nikon or Pentax who put the wires between the light and the film, which is how our eye is working. And not only that, our eye has a whole blind spot where nothing works at all. Do you know that every creationist has a blind spot?
I think it was Helmholtz, the famous German psychologist, who said if an engineer had given him the human eye, he'd have sent it back.
Indeed, indeed. I think viewers might like to see their own blind spots. Shall we demonstrate for them for just a moment?
Okay.
Yes. All you need to do the demonstration is a little pencil. You can do it just with an eraser, but this particular one has a little tiny red pin on the top. And what you do is cover one eye, if you would, please. And we take the pin and we move it right in the, and you have to keep looking right at the bridge of my nose, so keep your eye fixed. And now we're going to move it just out a little bit, about 15 degrees, and right about there.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
You can't see it?
No.
Now can you see it?
Yes.
Now can you see it?
Yes.
Now can you see it?
No.
There's a blind spot.
Yeah.
That's really lousy.
Yeah.
So what's amazing, though, about how natural selection has made the eye so it works despite this built-in flaw is that the eye